Hey, budding lawyers, welcome to the podcast. What is judicial clerkship? What work does it include? How beneficial it is to young law graduates? To explain this, we have with us Mr. Karan Khetani. Hi, Karan.
Hi, Prasanna. Thank you for the invitation. Really glad to be here with you.
Karan Khetani is a 2019 batch alumnus of NLU Tamil Nadu. Straight after law school, he was appointed as a judicial law clerk by the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. He has worked on matters concerning educational policy, intellectual property law, and law related to arbitration. In this episode, we'll be talking about his experience as a law clerk at the Delhi High Court. So let's start. Karan, firstly, please tell our audience what exactly a judicial clerk, or also known as a law clerk, means.
So, Prasanna, as the name suggests, judicial clerkship is basically a short term contractual assignment which is taken by a law graduate to work under the office of a judge, basically to assist him in discharge of, broadly put, basically to assist him in discharge of his administrative and judicial functions of the court to which the concerned judge is there. Basically, if you talk about judicial clerkship in foreign jurisdictions, the post is called as a judicial clerk, which we often commonly refer to as a law clerk as well. But in most of the high courts of the countries, especially Delhi High Court, the post is referred to as a law researcher. If you talk about other high courts like Rajasthan High Court or Allahabad High Court, the post is also often referred to as the legal researcher. In the Supreme Court of India, the post is referred to, according to the best of my knowledge, it's referred to as law clerk cum judicial assistant or research assistant. So basically, it's just a synonym of the post. Broadly, we can term it as a judicial law clerk, a person who assists the judge in discharge of his administrative and judicial functions.
Yeah, so basically it's the same thing. The names are different. Just like the public prosecutor. You
Yes.
go to different places, you will come to know it's named differently, but it's the same thing. But I think someone must clear this confusion up because it creates confusion. Uh, Law students don't know much about it, and they wonder what is law clerk, what is judicial clerk, what is a legal assistant. Suddenly, those
I
people who don't
completely
know.
understand. I completely understand that doubt inures in a lot of law students when they are in law school as to there's a notification by the High Court. It says that they are recruiting legal researchers. Is it the same thing which the Supreme Court appoints as judicial clerks? So there's a confusion amongst that. But I would like to clarify that broadly, all of these positions classify as a law clerk, as a judicial clerk. So when you file for master's applications abroad, you can mention your degree as a judicial not degree, you can mention your post as judicial law clerk stroke law researcher, because foreign jurisdictions tend to understand the judicial law clerk phrase more conveniently rather than a law researcher. So clarifying it broadly, both of the things mean the same. It's just that these rules are framed by each and every high court differently. These rules are framed on the administrative side by the High Court or the Supreme Court differently, and hence whatever the administration wants to term it, they term it.
Right. How does one get appointed as a judicial clerk in a high court or a Supreme Court, maybe?
So let's talk about the Supreme Court first. Supreme Court is to my mind the only judicial institutions as far as recruitment of law clerks is concerned, which conducts an examination on its administrative side for recruitment of law clerks. Now that examination is conducted by the Supreme Court Registry, and I think the applications open in April or May of each and every calendar month, and then the exam is conducted, let's say a month or a couple of months later. The registration fees, according to me, is 200 rupees, and you can conveniently choose a center amongst the various cities which are available in India. I think there's one section of 50 marks which is about the general awareness, which tests on general knowledge, and then there are other sections. So the Supreme Court website has this notification about recruitment of law clerks, which gets revised each and every year. So if a student follows that, then I think I also want to point out here that many students get get troubled in their minds because they usually follow third-party websites. I mean, following third-party websites is a good thing for broadening your knowledge base. But according to me, an aspirant should actually verify the details which are there on the third-party website from the actual website of the court, because that consists or comprises of the actual information. And many students sort of mix it up with other high courts. Each and every high court has a different criterion altogether. Uh, that's what about the Supreme Court. As I told you, that Supreme Court conducts a law clerk examination. If I talk about high courts do not conduct any examination to say. The position is offered based on an interview which is conducted by the judge concerned. So, what a student can do is, as far as the Delhi High Court is concerned, I will be primarily talking about two high courts, Delhi High Court and Rajasthan High Court, because I am from Rajasthan and I work at Delhi High Court. So, these are the two jurisdictions I am broadly aware about. As far as Delhi High Court is concerned, if an applicant inspires to be a judicial clerk, the first thing they can do is they can write to the Registrar General of the Delhi High Court. The address and everything is given on the website of the court. They can post an application to the registrar with a CV and a cover note that they aspire to be a law researcher. This is also the process which is followed to be a law intern under the chambers of the judge. And what the registry or the concerned registrar essentially does is the registrar essentially forwards a compilation of those applications to the private secretaries which are attached to the office of each and every judge. The private secretary then in turn brings it to the notice of the concerned judge. And then, according to the requirements or vacancies which are available, then the concerned person is contacted and then the position is essentially offered subject to an interview, which I mentioned in the beginning. As far as Rajasthan High Court is concerned, Rajasthan High Court has a form of the recruitment process has a form of advertisements which are advertisement circulars which are released on the websites of the website of the Rajasthan High Court. So what they essentially do is there's a notification for each and every law clerk position which opens up in Rajasthan High Court. The registry essentially calls up for applications. The Rajasthan High Court website calls for applications. They say that this is the judge under whom the vacancy has arisen. There is one vacancy or two vacancies, as the case may be. And the students can send, and the aspirants can send their applications to the concerned registrar by email or by post, whatever the mode is prescribed. And then an interview happens. So, if I may put it in words, maybe that may seem to be a more transparent sort of a procedure to aspirants. Because the name of the applicants are disclosed on the website, and which applicant has been selected, which applicant is in the wait list, everything is told by the Rajasthan High Court.
Yeah, so basically, because every high court has a sort of autonomy in its internal working matters, so each high court has a different procedure. But as you said, in Delhi High Court, so you can make an application. So is it like you can make an application anytime throughout the year?
Yes, you can make an application anytime throughout the year. But what I would suggest is, this is what I personally did. I personally work under Honorable Mr. Justice Rajiv Shakdar. So during my law school, in my fourth year, I interned under in his chambers, and I sort of got to know the working, the expectations which the judge has from his law clerks, and what are the demands of the work, what is the work environment. So there are many students who just go behind the tag of being a judicial clerk or a law clerk. I would suggest to the contrary as far as this practice is concerned, because as a law clerk involves, I'm sure this also might be a question in your bucket as to what work profile does a law clerk has. So I would want to, as far as my contractual letter is concerned, I would want to open the discussion. I would want to tell you that as far as my contractual letter is concerned, I'll read it out to you. There's a column of duty hours. So it says that a law researcher may be required to attend the office or residential office of the honorable judge to whom he or she is attached to, even on gazetted holidays or local holidays. The duty hours shall be fixed by the honorable judge concerned. There is no defined work profile. Whatever the judge says is the work. whatever the work hours are given by the judge are the work hours. So, in that case, because it is the starting point of any aspirant whatsoever, I would suggest that a person shortlists the chambers he or she wishes to apply to, and then specifically direct his or her own application to that particular chamber. I would suggest that they first intern in that chamber in let's say their law school life, and then maybe they will have better chances also, and they'll have an edge over other law clerks, let's say, or they'll also be able to assist the judge better, because law clerkship involves a mundane task of fact checking orders, judgments which are pronounced on a daily basis, and basically it's a research oriented task. So you need to assist the judge concerned with your research inputs on matters which come up on a daily basis. You need to brief the judge concerned about the matters which are listed. Let's say tomorrow, you have to read all the case files. This is entirely different from a litigator office which a person would have interned under earlier. Insofar as an office of an attorney is concerned, you are just your energy just has to be channelized in one particular direction. You know that this is the case you have to set up before the honorable court. You know that these are the facts, and you have to search case laws on specific points. In the office of the judge, the best part is that you will be working from the scratch. The plaint comes to you, you hear arguments of both the sides, and then the judge may use his law clerk as a sounding board to test propositions of law. Then you can give your own inputs. So you need to balance arguments of both the sides. You need to have a crisper understanding which one inculcates in his experience as a law clerk. And then you have to, so there are no fixed hours as well. I remember myself and my other fellow law clerks working for almost 15 to 16 hours also a day. We reached the Delhi High Court before the COVID time. Of course, we used to reach the Delhi High Court at about 10 o'clock, and then we used to get off from the High Court at about 10 in the night, and then we again used to go to the judge's house and work and all that. So it's a very mundane task, and it's back-breaking. So, but it has its own thrills. Basically, what a law clerk position offers you, it acts as a bridge before a student who has just graduated jumps to the field of litigation or whatever he or she wants to do. Let's say he wants to be a judicial services aspirant. Before you dive into that field, it gives you a bridge to understand the complex issues of law from the perspective of the bench. And then you can apply those things which you have learned. This is a very important aspect of law, the decision making process of law. Once you understand how decision making is done, it helps you to propose a meticulous solution to any problem whatsoever involving any complex set of facts. So that's how a position of a law clerk helps an aspirant.
Okay. So, Karan, can you tell me the main requirements a court considers while hiring a judicial clerk?
So the best thing about a position of law clerk is that there is no PQE which is required in most of the jobs. Many aspirants would complain that they require an experience of 1 year or a couple of years. A judicial clerk position does not require any prior experience whatsoever. So that is actually a position which is made for freshers. Insofar as experience is concerned, there is no professional experience which is required. All I said is that you need to have a good command. See, as far as the law clerk position is concerned, it actually vests, the appointment actually vests within the sole discretion of the judge concerned. All right. So maybe when you go for an interview, one particular that's why it's important to know about the office in which you intend to work. See, let's say I'll talk about my personal example. When I went to give my interview, I wasn't asked about the complex questions on arbitration law or whatever. I was asked general questions. That depends on judge to judge basis. I have a few friends in Rajasthan High Court who are working as legal researchers. I asked them as to how was your interview, and one said that one judge asked specific sections as to what do you mean by this principle of law? What does this section, what does this order of the civil procedure code signifies? So maybe my advice is that you need to have a general understanding of the law. And the good thing by which you can gain an edge over is you can see the website of the concerned high court. You can you can see the office under which you are going to give interview. Let's say you're going to give your interview under XYZ chambers. You can see from the website of the court as to what roster that chamber is presently handling. What is a roster is that the Chief Justice of the concerned High Court, or let's say the Supreme Court, frames a roster of judges. Roster includes the types of matters which a particular judge will hear in a given period in which that roster is effective. So let's say that chamber is handling matters of educational policy. So you should be aware, this is not a hard and fast rule, but it is advisable that you should be aware about what are the recent decisions, let's say in the field of educational law. And, is there a recent landmark ruling of the Supreme Court or the High Court? You should also, follow. I remember one law clerk of a friend of mine from Rajasthan High Court. He was telling that recently when he went to give his interview, a couple of days ago only, that particular judge had had authored a judgment on one particular issue. So he was asked actually as to what is his understanding on that principle of law. He gave his understanding, but then the judge said that I wrote this judgment. Are you aware of that? Unfortunately, he was not aware of that, but that did not prejudice his application in any manner whatsoever. But I'm just giving you a general overview as to what questions to expect in an interview. There is no fixed requirement as to what the judge sees. It basically is the discretion of the judge, and the discretion can be exercised, as I said, after the interview is conducted, on your legal skills, or let's say speaking skills or presentability skills. It's basically should be an overall package, if I can say that.
But you can do some preparation by just going to the job description in the notification, or knowing what type of matters that judge is handling.
General principles of law you should definitely know about, because you would have studied those in law schools. In addition to that, as I advised, you can see what roster is that judge particularly presently handling, and then you can sort of research upon that roster a bit. You can also get in touch with the law clerks who are presently working under that judge, and
that is a good point.
And then you can get to know more about so if you are not able to get in touch with those law clerks, that is why I advised that you should be interning under the chamber first, because then you will have an understanding as to what your boss expects from you. Once you have an understanding as to what is the task, what will be a position which you will be pushed into, then maybe you will be able to show your skills and talents better.
Right. And you'll also build some contacts.
Yes.
You can refer to.
Another good thing about the position of law clerk is that high courts or Supreme Court function, as you might know, on roster. These rosters, there is no hard and fast rule about when the roster would change. But technically, as I have observed in the Delhi High Court, it changes within 6 months. 6 to 7 months, a new roster comes up. So the good thing about law clerk is, see, I'll tell you from my example. I started my job in June 2019. As soon as I graduated from the law school, I started this position. At that point in time, the judge I am working under, we had Arbitration and Conciliation Act matters. So we were hearing petitions for appointment of arbitrations, for Section 9 petitions, Section 11 petitions in concerning Arbitration Act. After that, our roster within 3 to 4 months, our roster changed to a very, very interesting roster of educational matters. That roster had banking matters also, educational matters also, and matters related to Delhi Development Authority also. While working in that roster, after a period of 3 to 4 months, now from March 2020, we have the roster of commercial matters. So you see, what is the point I'm trying to build upon? The point I'm trying to build upon is that despite of the fact as to whatever the research area or specialization of a particular candidate may be, law clerk is a position which gives you a field to explore diaspora of legal issues and varied legal interests of maybe any field. So maybe in law school you would be interested about arbitration, because maybe you have studied arbitration, you have done arbitration moots, and you just you wrote about arbitration, so you inculcated a research interest toward arbitration. Let's say maybe while you act as a judicial clerk, you are true to your arbitration side, but let's say that while dealing with commercial matters on a day-to-day basis, you gathered a novel interest altogether in intellectual property law, because those are the kinds of matters you're dealing with. Each and every matter has a different issue altogether. Each and every roster, as I told you, has a different flavor of law altogether. So that sort of brings you under the small umbrellas which get covered under the bigger umbrella of law. So a law clerk in this time period, let's say it's usually for 1 year or a couple of years, the judicial clerkship, it gives an aspirant a sort of a freedom to explore as to what he or she wants to do with the career in law in which he has placed his foot in. So that's one of the important aspect of a law clerk's position.
Okay, so do the courts pay a salary or a stipend to these judicial clerks?
So I would call it as a stipend. You can say a consolidated salary also. As far as Delhi High Court is concerned, it pays 35,000 rupees per month. As far as Rajasthan High Court is concerned, I'm informed it pays 50,000 rupees per month. As far as Supreme Court is concerned, it pays 50,000 rupees per month, which I think by a recent notification, I'm informed by a recent notification, it has been increased to 65,000 for a law clerk who has already completed an year with as his position of a law clerk.
So, do you mean that it can be extended beyond a year?
No, only in the Supreme Court there's a recent notification that. Oh, are you talking about the position of the judicial clerkship?
Yeah.
Yes. As far as Delhi High Court is concerned, and I'm sure this is the position in other high courts also, a judicial clerkship is basically a contractual job, which is in Delhi High Court. It is offered for, let's say, a position. It is subject to the discretion of the concerned judge, but it is generally offered for a period of 1 year, which is extendable up to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And even after 3 years, it can be extended subject to the discretion of the judge, but that has to be via written authorization of the Chief Justice of that High Court. I'm mentioning Chief Justice because Chief Justice is the head of the administrative side of the concerned court. So all the rules and regulations are signed by the Chief Justice because it is in his authority that those rules and regulations are framed. So it is, as far as Delhi High Court is concerned, I'm sure that this is the scenario in other courts as well. It is extendable up to 3 years, and even after that, it can be extended subject to the discretion of the judge with the written permission of the Chief Justice concerned. And there's one age requirement in Delhi High Court. I forgot to tell you about that. The candidate should be less than 27 years of age on the date of application.
Okay. So I have still 1 year to apply.
Yes.
Okay. So we got a overall idea of what work it includes. So can you just break it down into how is your daily routine in a court when it was working before the COVID times?
Before the COVID time, our daily schedule was that you have to necessarily attend the court proceedings. Even if this is my personal advice, even if you think that you can work more effectively on the matters which are listed tomorrow by sitting in the chambers, and then you can prepare briefs on that. But I would advise the aspirants who want to become judicial clerks to attend judicial proceedings daily. From 10:30 to 4:30, you should necessarily attend the judicial proceedings daily, because it gives you an unmatchable experience. and this is what judicial clerkship is all about. So we attend judicial proceedings daily. Then after that, daily orders are finalized. We fact check. Let's say there are 40-50 matters listed. Usually there were 40-50 matters listed on daily basis, but when we were in the education roster, there were 100 matters which were listed on a daily basis. So fact checking all those orders. Then the concerned judge I clerk under, he also sits in his chambers until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. Till the time the work does not get finished, and he ensures that all the orders are corrected, signed. So we correct them, then they go to the concerned judge, then he makes the corrections, and then those are signed and uploaded so that the orders can get transmitted to the parties, and then whatever steps are to be taken can be taken. Then in addition to that, the work involves preparing briefs about the matters which are listed the next day. So the cause list comes the day prior in the evening at about 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. That these are the matters which are listed tomorrow. You read those files, whatever important matters are there or whatever matters are listed for arguments, from the previous order that this matter is listed for arguments, and this matter, nothing much will be done in this matter.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to shortlist those matters. You need to brief the boss as to these matters are important, and in these arguments are likely, if there are any fresh matters, you need to prepare a list of dates, a common list of dates. See, when you're interning under an office of an attorney, it is very easy to prepare a list of dates. This is what I learned from my boss, because he ensured that we learn this. When you work under an office of an attorney, you only have one fixed perception in mind, that that which way the case you want to proceed, which way the case will the judge decide. But which way you want to proceed. So you pick up only those dates which are convenient to you.
Right.
In the office of the judge, you can't miss out on any detail. You have to pick out each and every date, irrespective of the fact that it suits the petitioner or the respondent, because in decision-making process, you have to weigh both the sides equally. After weighing both the sides, you need to decide as to which side is a bit heavier, where obviously legal question is answered. So preparing list of dates is a very important part of the law clerk's life. Then preparing brief of arguments and briefing the judge. Then judge may also question you about, have you read about this provision? Have you read about this principle? Did you do any recent follow-up as to what are the recent judgments of the Supreme Court, assisting the judge with that. So it's a job as if it won't let you sleep. In the night also, you'll be keep on thinking, if the judge asks this question in the morning, what should your answer be? So that's the daily routine which is most likely to be there.
Yeah, and it's really a tedious job. I agree. There are even some judges, I'm not sure about the name, but in Bombay High Court, I think it was Justice Kathawala.
Yes.
Right? So who used to hear matters till midnight, 1 a.m. or so, right?
Yes. This is the practice which sort of was followed by the judge concerned under whom I work in education matters. See, in education policy matters, the thing is that the student will file a petition against the Delhi University or Guru Gobind Singh University. And in education policy, there's a Supreme Court judgment which says that cutoff date is sacrosanct. So for any admission, there's a cutoff date, and that cutoff date is sacrosanct. So let's say that there is a technical irregularity which has been committed by the university concerned. Okay, and the petitioner approaches the court with a writ petition. 2 days afterwards is the cutoff date. So you see how much is the pressure on the court. These matters require adjudication as of yesterday. Everyone will say, "Hear my matter." Not only hear my matter, decide the judgment also, and pronounce the judgment also. So you see, it's a very, very tedious task. We people say that being a judge is this is what I was hearing in my law school, that being a judge is a luxurious position. As fancy as it may sound, it is not, because a judge works really, really hard. After hearing the matters, people think that the judge's work is over. It is not. He has to correct all the orders. Then he has to do the pending judgments. There are reserved judgments which are there. He has to read next day's files also. So it's a lot of work which is involved, and it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job.
Yeah, so people usually compare to like how many hours the court is open. Like they only work for 10 to 4 or 10 to
Yes,
5.
that's an incorrect
But
perception.
before that and after that also there is a lot of work which
Yes.
every court and every court staff does, which is not, popularly known with
So in
others.
educational policy matters, that's what I was telling you, that because we had 100 matters daily, it was impossible to complete the list by 4:30. So the concerned judge under whom I am working, we used to hold courts till 7 o'clock, 7:30, straight away from 10:30. Only half an hour break in the afternoon from 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Then again starting from 2 o'clock, continuously till 7 o'clock. And after that, if you have to do orders and all that, your mind
Hmm.
just gives up. So it's a very tedious job, and judges do that.
Okay, so we got an overview about how courts work and how judges and all work. But can you tell me just how beneficial it is for young law graduates in terms of his career growth?
See, Prasanna, let's say that a person wants to pursue higher studies, because this is an incorrect perception which many people have, as far as I have witnessed. Many people say कि यार 5 साल लॉ पढ़ लो, उसके बाद 1 साल की क्लर्कशिप कर लेना, और फिर वो रिकमेंडेशन लेटर लेके फॉरेन पढ़ने चल जाना. This is the most incorrect perception which young law students have. First of all, to clear all the air, if you apply for a master's degree, you are required to submit academic references, not professional references. You
Okay.
cannot submit the reference of the judge. You may submit his reference in maybe for assistance of your scholarship, but as far as admission application is concerned, as far as the universities I know, I'm talking about Oxford, I'm talking about Cambridge, I'm talking about London School of Economics. These universities mandatorily say that you cannot submit professional references. You have to submit academic references. Academic references are those references teachers who have taught you in your law school life.
Yeah, teachers or you're the principal of your
Yes.
law college.
Yes. So this air which is there, that get a recommendation, work there 1 year, get a recommendation, and then rush off to the race of the world, that is an incorrect perception. And
Right.
about the advantages of law clerk position, as you asked that how it helps, many people will say that it helps you to learn what you should argue, as to how you should argue. According to me, while working under the chambers of the judge and watching judicial proceedings daily, a person understands what not to argue.
Hmm.
You understand my point? You learn that court craft as to what legal points will please the judge. How should your argument be structured that it would please the judge? You don't have to be. This is what is quintessential in the times of COVID, when we are running virtual courts, that you don't have to be lengthy enough, because in physical courts you have the liberty to go on and on and on, but in virtual courts you don't have that liberty. You have to be crisp, and you have to be able to convey your point to the judge. So a person learns how
Right.
not to argue. When you have those conversations with the judge, those conversations are really, really important, because that not only develops your legal understanding but also develops you as a person, because you are interacting with authority of such a nature that maybe this is a once in a lifetime experience. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you get a holistic understanding of different areas of law, irrespective of your research interest. So that is how it helps the students. I have seen many students who want to go, as you told me that you work with a public policy think tank. There are many students I have seen that they wish to go for public policy. What they do is they identify the office of a judge which is presently dealing in matters of constitutional significance, which is basically the the division bench 1 or the division bench 2 of the concerned court, because all the public interest litigations are heard by division benches of 2 judges, and So a person shortlists office of that particular judge, and then they work under that particular judge for, let's say, even a short period, for let's say 6 months or 7 months, and then they gain that experience, and then they start working with a public policy think tank. Because now what is the edge they have is they know what arguments to put in a public interest litigation, what arguments to put in a public interest litigation, which will definitely impress upon the judge.
Right.
Art of drafting, art of arguing is these are the I may go on talking about this, because there is no limit as to what are the things which you which you inculcate and learn. But as I said, it gives you a holistic exposure of the field of law.
Agree. Let's move on to the last question, which we usually have in our podcast. Can you share an incident from your clerkship career which is very memorable to you?
Each and every day is a struggle, Prasanna. But okay, because I have been most fascinated about the educational roster which the judge handled. I'll share a case from that. What happened was, as I told you, that roster was allocated to us in after 3 months. Let's say November 2019, October 2019. August or October, September, October 2019, that education roster was allocated to us. One day, a matter came which said writ petition number so and so of year 5 years, let's 2015. I was very disappointed. I have always been very disappointed before acting as a law clerk as to why matters take so much of time to get adjudication. Now that I have worked under a judge's office, I know as to why they take so much of time. But I was very disappointed because there's an education board in India. Let's say XY. So what did X? So the students who were the petitioners before the court were a group of students who were abandoned and forsaken by their parents. And there was a child care home, let's say ABC, who actually took those students in their care, good people. And then they also, those petitioner students also had the benefit of getting education through that child care home. So those students completed grade 10 and subsequently also cleared grade 12 examination, which to them was a very big thing, because they would have ever thought that they would be able to reap the benefits of education. But given the good things about the ABC care home, they were able to do that. Now, the one problem which was there with the education board XYZ was that whenever you file or register yourself for grade 10 or grade 12 examination, Prasanna, ask you your name as well as your surname.
Okay.
So if a person does not have a surname, he has to create a surname in order to register for in order to give the grade 12, because the form will not accept your only first name. It has to be a surname. Okay. So those students, what they wrote was, while they were filing the application, first name, let's say they wrote Karan, and the second name, because they did not file their application, the care filed their application. They wrote the second name, they wrote ABC, the name of the care center. Okay. So they wrote their name as Karan ABC, just for the purposes of clearing or willing to sit for those examinations. After they graduated from grade 12, because there are other documents which were there, other government identifications which were there, they had only first name. They had only Karan in that. So they want their second name or the surname, what we call it, which is ABC, to be removed from their grade 10 and grade 12 mark sheets. That's the only issue. That is the only issue which is there in the matter. And that matter is pending for 5 years. Was pending for 5 years because the educational board XYZ was on each and every date taking time to revert with instructions as
for
to
5 years.
Yes, many dates were taken for 5 years. So when the judge concerned, when this matter came before the court under whom I work, we heard arguments for one day and then the judgment was reserved by the concerned judge. In the arguments, it came to be that the concerned educational board XYZ did have some rules for change of name. The argument of the XYZ board was that we have rules for change of name, and the change of name does not include such a scenario where which talks about abandoned students or forsaken students, and the change of name can be done only within 1 year. This petition is belated because it has been filed after several years. The argument of students was that we are students, we are abandoned students. The fact that we are filing this petition itself is a big thing for us, because that was, I think, a pro bono litigation, and it's not our mistake that we are forsaken, we are abandoned. It is because the XYZ board wanted a surname that we included a surname. Otherwise, we were willing to give our exams by only by our first name.
Hmm.
So, this was a case when arguments were heard and judgment was reserved. This was a case where the law is of no use because there is a vacuum in the law.
Right.
There is no rule of the XYZ board, or there is no statute which says that if there is an abandoned student or a forsaken student, if he or she wants to go back to his identity which was there, then you should take these steps. There is no provision whatsoever. So the XYZ board did not foresee such a situation, if I may put it in those words, did not foresee such a situation. So while we were discussing, an interesting discussion took place. Then what we essentially did was, the judge essentially relied upon the United Nations International Convention on Child Rights, to say that each and every child has his or her own individualistic identity, and on that the court directed the board to take steps, remove the name, remove the ABC the ABC which was there, remove ABC, and then issue them fresh mark sheets. So this is one of the there are many memorable incidents, but this is one of the most memorable incidents, although it was a short case. See how short the legal point was, but still the matter was lingering on for 5 years just because of the incapability, if I may say so, or maybe incapability is the harsh word, or let's say a prosaic attitude of the XYZ education board to deal with the matter, because they say that our hands are tied, and this is the problem with the instrumentalities of state in our country, that they are not willing to take one step forward.
Yeah, they were not looking at finding the solution. They are saying, yes, this is the law, these are the rules, and we are abiding the rules.
Exactly my point. So this is where the court comes into the picture, and I think International Convention on Child Rights talks about the parens patri principle also, which says that if those children are forsaken or abandoned, then the state should exercise that parent jurisdiction. And in this case, the state should have been the XYZ board, because it's an instrumentality of the state. If it fails to do so, then the parents patri jurisdiction will be exercised by the courts. Because you have failed in your duty, the remedy is courts, and courts are exercising their jurisdiction. So that novel reasoning was developed in that judgment by relying upon the international conventions. And then, so in education roster, whenever the judge used to say, there were petitioner in persons appearing in many matters, the students themselves used to come, because the advocates were not able to explain the nitty-gritties of the admission process. Where is the university gone wrong? So the students used to explain. And then when the judge used to say that, okay, petition allowed or admission is granted, that smile which came on the face of the students or the petitioner students, that smile is enough to say that, this is the job satisfaction which you get.
And I think that is the main reason why it is very memorable to you.
Yes. So this is one of the most widely guessed incidents which I can share with you.
Okay. Thanks, Karan. Thanks for sharing your experience with us, and also for this informative conversation. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you like this episode, then you must also check out our other podcast episodes available here and follow us here so that you don't miss any new episode. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.